Hey, it's me, Uncle Ricky, and well, we made it through yesterday when the former 45th President of the United States turned himself in for criminal arrest for the fourth time in 4 months. On the rest of the month, maybe that's the new qualification to be president or post or past president of the United States of America. People in this country on both sides are in shock. The extreme right is like, how can it be happening to us? He was the president, so anything that he did while he was the president, because he was in that position of power, he's the leader of the country, you cannot say that anything that he did was illegal. He was our president. He was our Trump. We put Trump there. We put Trump there because he was sent by God. And some of us even believe that, even though we're Christians, that Trump is here to replace Jesus. He's the second coming. We'd rather listen to Trump than listen to the words in the book that we've held up and beat everybody to death with for all these years, the Holy Bible. On the left, I don't understand why, because a lot of people on the left from the very beginning thought that there was no way to stop Trump, and now that he's been arrested for the fourth time in 4 months for crimes that he allegedly committed against the very country that he was president of. We've never had a president actually come close to being accused of alleged treason. But the more we uncover on Trump, it's almost like how long it's some people in the back of their minds are like, it's going to be inevitable. They're going to come out with something that proves that Trump tried to sell the country out from underneath the people that occupy it, the people that live in it, the people that make it go. And yes, we're not perfect, and yes, we are in dastardly conditions. We are probably in conditions that we have never experienced since the Great Depression for many of us, and in conditions that, especially like with the millennials, they have not experienced in their lifetime. They were born in a time of rising wealth where, actually people had the chance to grow economically, socially, and expand themselves beyond the limitations of where they came from. But somehow during that time, because of bad decisions in DC, bad decisions in homes, bad decisions in communities, we have gone backwards. The generations, the last of the baby boomer generation, are people that are experiencing for the first time a massive decrease in in the ability to do better than their parents. In other words, we started going backwards, and it's only gotten worse. You can blame it on drugs. You can blame it on the economy. You can blame it on politics. You can blame it on geopolitics. You can blame it on anything. But for the first time in our existence, the people of America, no matter what your political persuasion is, no matter what your religious persuasion is, no matter what your sexual orientation is, we are waking up to the fact that perhaps we have to blame it on nobody but ourselves. And why do I say this? Because you're like, yeah, I voted again. I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I have said just about everything I can think of against Trump. And I don't believe that anything I have said about Trump has been proven to be wrong, because Trump is walking evil. But the reason we have to blame ourselves is because somehow in a society, in a free society, I understand people have the ability to, or the right to believe what they want to. But how did the evil of Trump permeate this, or get ingrained in our society to the point that an individual, and not even a smart individual, just a bully like Trump, could rise to the top of the crop and use these idiotic ideals or promote the ideals that only create hate and dissension in this country, to the point he could become the president of the United States. And it's really hard to understand because he never won. He never won the general election. In other words, he never won the popular vote. In other words, no time when he ran, even when he became the president, was he the number one vote getter. In the popular election, even as unpopular as Hillary Clinton was, even as hard as her campaign started to collapse at the end with the help of Trump and allegedly, possibly Russia, Russiagate, Russia. When he stood there on national TV in front of the world, asked Russia to interfere in our election and got away with it. See, this is the thing that really galls me. Is like people on the left maybe didn't push hard enough to rein Trump in, and people on the right, because he was pushing their talking points, they didn't do enough to try to stop the Frankenstein that they were creating. And by the time he was full blown and in full swing in the White House, it was too late. Trump wrecked the country. They stopped him in some places, but it was the total effect wasn't enough. Trump wrecked this country, and the bad part is about it, on the left or the right, we let him. Okay, yeah, they impeached him twice. Congress impeached him twice. Yes, it was a political action because impeachment is a political action. But the Senate, that had the power to boot his mango-tanned ass out of the White House, failed to do so because, one, Republicans failed to, I guess, admit their own mistake, and Democrats failed to actually push the issue because they were so concerned about preserving bipartisan unity, which basically hasn't been in Congress for the last 10 or 15 years. This country is built on ideals, but when those ideals start to falter and don't work, it's not the ideal. The ideal is just what people's thoughts, the thing that makes your thoughts work. It's just like in your personal life. You can have a goal, you can have lofty goals, you can have evil goals, but to make any goal work, you got to put in the effort. America has stopped putting in the effort. We have let our differences divide us, so now we cannot work to be the United States of America. We would rather dwell on our little petty social differences. I'm not going to say little petty social differences. Some of our social differences are legitimate, but it doesn't mean that any of our differences should cause this country to come to an end. It doesn't mean that any of our differences should form a major political party and all their desire is to conquer the other side, whether it's just through appearance or whether it's physically through mortal combat. Trump is he is where all of these things are centered around Trump. And I guess Trump is the magnet for disaster. He's like, the Allstate commercial, mayhem. Trump is a living, breathing example of mayhem. I remember one time, in an interview when he was running for president the first time, they were talking about, unrest and all that. And he came out of his mouth and he said, "I like chaos." How can you vote for somebody that openly says that he prefers chaos? He does not prefer organization. He does not prefer unity. He does not prefer any situation that doesn't promote his own well-being. Chaos promoted Trump's own well-being. As long as the country was confused, as long as the country was fighting over issues, Trump could reign supreme. It took the attention off of him. People were worried about all of these side issues and not worried about the main issue, the country surviving as the United States of America. United we stand, divided we fall. And that division that he created, we were on a path, and we're still on a path, because it's not about the person, it's about the ideal. It's about what they call Trumpism, or now they want to call it MAGism, because it looks like Trump. Even the MAGA elite are starting to realize Trump as a leader probably isn't going to work. The country may not put him. I mean, they're going to ride it out to the end, because they're diehard idiots. Just, that's just their nature. That's part of the MAGA cult. But the philosophies, the racism, the misogyny, the far out QAnon stuff, that's the whole thing that makes MAGA. That's what makes it a cult, and they have to dedicate themselves. Every cult has to have a leader, and they have to dedicate themselves to somebody, and that's why they are saying that Donald Trump is their Jesus. He is the Messiah for them. He is the Savior for America in the minds of the extreme right. And how do you deal with that when it's starting to be ingrained? The people have adapted it. They're passing it on to their kids. Those kids are going to pass. It's an ideal that we have to remove from the minds of people. It's an idea that we have to remove from a society that is based on free thinking. And it's not that people don't have the right to have those thoughts, but when those thoughts become a movement, a motion, and they gain enough strength to oppress the rest of the country, which happens to be the numerical majority, then democracy is eroded, because democracy is based on majority rule. And if you get into a situation where the minority continually dictates to the majority, then your country can no longer be based on democracy. The MAGA caucus, the far right caucus, is threatening to put the government into a shutdown mode unless the majority of the country bends to the will of the minority. And everything they want is going to be destructive and disruptive to the majority of the people in this country. This country is built. I'm not going to say that everything this country has done has been perfect. It's not. I mean, history tells us that. That's why we have trouble with race relations. That's why we have trouble. That's why we have abortion issue. That's why we have religious discrimination. That's why we have age discrimination. That's why we have a country full of people that are facing the fact that they may have to die because they can't afford to go to a hospital in what is quote unquote the greatest country in the world. How great can you be if you can't even ensure a minimum standard of health for your people? How great can you be when you have the potential, when you have the resources to feed your people, house your people, and we have people in the United States of America starving to death, living on the streets like animals? No help, no way. How can you still call yourself the greatest country in the world when you have rampant crime? How can you call yourself the greatest country in the world when you have people risking their lives to get to your country, to come into your country, either legally or illegally, but their entry into your country only causes further division because of the policy of bigotry, non-acceptance, the otherism being promoted by people in lawmaking positions that could deal with the immigration issue, that could write new laws, provide a better system, provide more, put more people into the system to handle the greater number of immigrants and process them legally, so the ones that are supposed to be deported can be deported, and the ones that are trying to get here legally and have a reason to be here and that are willing to participate and work in this country to improve the country in the hopes that they can improve their own lot in life. But no, we have lawmakers that just bicker back and forth, open borders, no borders, this control, that control. You know, you're a bigot, you're prejudiced. No, you're a weak-minded liberal, and the whole time you have people that are seeking a better life, that all they're receiving is pain and injury in their efforts to get into the country. And then when they get here, they get automatically forced to the bottom of the ladder, and they have to claw their way out. You know, the right talks about pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And I don't want to say anything bad that, you know, that is an unreal ideal for people that are here, that are born here. But yet and still we have people that come here with nothing, that come here illegal, that have to look over their shoulders continually for years because they know that they will never ever become legal residents of this United States. But yet and still they scrimp and save and pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They have their children here in the United States. The children become legal citizens of the United States. And for the majority, their children inherit the same work ethic that their parents had. But when they go to use that work ethic to get out of to rise above the conditions that their parents had to survive, to give them a chance to become U.S. citizens, to be born on this soil, then they run into the real prejudice. And they can't understand it because, hey, I'm a citizen. So why are you treating me like, you know, an illegal? I was born here. No, your parents were illegal. They came here. We didn't want them here, but we did hire them as our maids. We did hire them as our gardeners. We paid them less than we paid other people that belong here. And you don't belong here because you can't. Your people weren't from here. You came over. You came across the Rio Grande, or you overstayed your visa. So we don't want you, unless you're willing to be subjected to less than, even though you are a citizen of the United States. This is why they want to suspend the 14th Amendment. It's not going to stop the migration problem as long as the United States is still, even with all the bad economic conditions around the world, every country in the world is suffering economically. The United States is better, is doing better. It's a statistic, it's a fact that the United States is doing better as far as the standards that they use to measure the success, the economic success of a country than anybody else. Everybody's post-COVID. Everybody is trying to get back on track. But the United States is doing better than all the other industrialized nations in the world. And we don't even realize it because things are not the way that we are used to. You know, it's like we lost. I don't understand how it's possible, but it's possible. We lost all of our manufacturing jobs. Technology has replaced a lot of industry, has replaced the need for actual living, breathing, bleeding manpower. And I use the term manpower as a colloquialism, a generality. Humanity has been removed. If there is manufacturing, it's robots as much as possible to save on money, because it's cheaper to buy a robot and maintain a robot than it is to pay a human being and provide benefits and a pension, even if that human being is paying into their pension fund. It's not because the American ideal changed. It's because the people, the manufacturers decide, you know what, I can get it for $10 an hour cheaper in whatever. So even though America built this country, even though America built this company, even though we have advertised that We are American always and forever. When it comes to the bottom line, when it comes to enriching the 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th, and 20th generation of this family, I'm going somewhere else. Is it the American workers' fault for demanding too much? Or is it just the fault of the owners for expecting too much for their dollar? It's greed, man. It's greed. As far as people getting along, I think the divisions, it's just like anything else. The bad gets promoted more than the good. I mean, if you come from an urban area, or even if you come from a rural area, it's always the bad qualities these days that get talked about. It's always the bad problems that get the news coverage. The good, the bad, in a 30-minute news show, the bad gets 29 minutes and 30 seconds. The good, it's always like one little spot that gets 30 seconds, Oh, this is the heartwarming thought of the day. But when you're talking about millions of people in the country and billions of people in the world, there has to be more good than we talk about. We talk about the bad because it creates ratings, it creates views, it creates hate and discontent. And hate and discontent wind up generating money. Hard to fathom, hard to understand, but it's just the basic truth. There is good in this world, and it is becoming harder to find. But when we find it, do we promote it? No. We don't even give ample credit or deserved credit to the people that are doing good. We might, oh, thank you, and move on to, the massacre down the street. We have lost. It's a double-edged sword because the right talks about we want to make America great. We want to take it back and leave it to Beaver time. Well, it was an easier time. There was lower crime. But also it was, and this is the part that they don't want you to know because they want to camouflage the true intent. It was a time of great oppression for large segments of the country. Black and brown people were struggling before the civil rights awakening in the 60s. And post that, the struggle even became greater. And the media, the right, found out one way to push their point, to get their point across, even among the minorities, was to produce continual, non-stop evidence of the evil of the minorities. The terms like welfare queen, domestic terrorists, the plight of the ghetto, which the people that live in the ghettos, they didn't create the ghettos, they were forced into the ghettos, much like Jews were forced into the ghettos prior to World War II. Ghettos were created and allowed for people that were considered less than. And I'm not saying it's a black man. Every immigrant ethnic portion of this country that came into the country after the original quote-unquote English colonizers or French colonizers, they had to do their time in the box. The Italians were discriminated. They were forced into ghettos in cities like New York and Chicago, Boston, and they worked their way out. They pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and they worked their way out. The established people, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, they didn't want it, but as time went on, equality occurred. The Germans, the same thing. The Irish, the same thing. The only people, or the only peoples that have been historically stepped upon are the Native Americans who owned this country to start with, better known as Indians, and a race of people that were purposely bought from another portion of the world as slaves and used their labor to build early America. Those two races, as far as this country is concerned, have never ever gotten the treatment that they deserve. Even though individuals, even though collectively people of those two races have contributed enormously to the building of this country, the protection of this country, the welfare of this country. So, land of the free, equality for all, that has been a fallacy, but it doesn't have to remain a fallacy. And it just, it doesn't, it's not even, you can't even flip the switch and make everything equal. But if you stop being stupid and stop promoting issues just to keep yourself at the top and understand that it's not going to hurt to have people feeling like they have a fair share. You don't have to obviously kick somebody in the teeth every day, all day, and continually take away their rights. Take away the rights of women, reverse the achievements of equal opportunity for blacks, continually ignore the plight of the Native Americans, continually try to promote the open slaughter of migrants. Like, they use terms like invasion, like these people are armed. They're coming across with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Yeah, it's a whole lot of them, but how is it an invasion? And I'm not saying you got to let everybody in, because you can't, but you got to be smart about and humane about the conditions, and you have to do stuff to support the laws that you make about people getting into this country. One reason people come in illegally is not because they don't think they can make it across legally. It's because of the choke point, and they need to get out of the conditions that they came from, or they know they're going to die. At least here, they might have to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and they think they might have a boot with some straps to pull themselves up by, or they can create that boot. But on the other side, on this side, because they're them and we're us, a lot of us think we have the right just to gun them down because they are invading our country. Our country was formed by invasion. Just ask any Native American. Our country was formed by warped mentalities. Just think of all the slaves, all the black Africans that their bodies littered the bottom of the ocean between the continent of Africa and the Atlantic coast of the United States. Think about all the slaves that died under the oppression of slavery here in the United States, or even more than that. If you don't want to be that historical, think about all the minorities that have died just asking for the right to be equal in the country that they live in, that they're taxed in, that they are required to serve in the military in, or that they voluntarily serve in the military. Where is that equality? America can truly be the greatest country in the world, but as long as America continues to be the America that is hidden, behind all the glitz and glamour, it'll never be shit. Well, that's it for me, Uncle Ricky. That's all I got to say. And if you agree with me, fine. If you don't, I don't care. But I'm still going to say it. So peace out, and God bless everybody, anybody, no matter what your thought is. I'm just hoping that things get better, and soon. Peace out, and God bless until I see you again. Bye.